is that role like helping them, or is it exhausting them? Did the character choose this role, or did they fall into it? What would happen if they stopped playing this role? And then again, bringing it personal is kind of like noticing where you are playing the same role in your real life. Like, where are you acting, or where am I acting as a demon? Where does this feel true? Where does this feel tiring? Like, does that role like really resonate or not? Like for me, I think like if I'm thinking particularly with the Dewey character, it's like Dewey, this character, this demon character, is like trapped in this world and doesn't really want to be, and is looking for a way out. This role does not fit them. They don't like it. They want to get out of this world that they're in. So they're looking for an escape. They're looking for an exit. I just really resonated with that more so than this image card in this context. And that might be because Dewey is a little bit more clearly defined as a character for me personally. And so again, you know, thinking about who our character is, the world that they're in, and the role that they are trying to play. Like again, if I think about Demon with this character almost looks like kind of they're like okay with it in some way. There's like, they have this mask is like very calm, or maybe it's hiding the fact that they aren't the demon, or maybe they don't want people to know that they're the demon. Maybe these bugs are like their friend. Maybe the demon is like misunderstood in some way. I don't know, but there's a lot of ways to kind of like explore that part. And then the next card that we're drawing is the conflict. And again, I'm gonna stick with these cards as my conflict card. And this is the conflict card. And so this is the problem that the character is dealing with, right? This is basically the plot of our story. We have a character, a role, and a world, and this is the conflict, right? It's not the problem. It's kind of what's creating the friction among these three pieces: the character, the role, and the world. Like, what gets in their way? How does this conflict make their role even harder for them? Is this an external conflict, an internal conflict? Is it relational, right? And so if you wanted to make this kind of again, this is just a very minimal way to go through something like this. You could certainly have multiple characters that you're kind of playing with and exploring that are like working together, or you know, for whatever reason, different inner parts of self. But it could certainly be relational, right? What emotion does this conflict bring up? What is the character tempted to do because of it? And then maybe just kind of that gentle noticing of where does that friction kind of show up in your own life. And so now kind of looking at all of these cards that we've been working with so far, it's starting to answer the question of like, what is getting in this character's way, right? So it's not symbolic, it's just kind of visual and intuitive. Maybe it's something like blocking them, distracting them, overwhelming them, tempting them, or confusing them. And like for me, this is actually, for me personally, this seems to be going in a kind of more existential direction. Like this kind of, to me, just, it reminds me of like a skeleton kind of, you know, being taken away, but this like striving towards sunlight and the light. Yeah, and so what emotion does this bring up for the character? This kind of like dark cave kind of a world, a lower realm, and there's a lot of, right, the bugs crawling on the ground, looks like it, and you know, even Dewey and this character, it's kind of funny, they kind of like mirror each other in a way. There's like this darkness and then this like little chunk of gray. Dewey has the stone, so there's like this like being in a cave kind of an energy. You know, what is the character attempted to do because of this conflict? It's also interesting because I guess there's like these wings here and then these wings in in this card, right? And so now this is kind of getting into action, and really it's almost like wanting us to start to bring in that play of like, well, what are you gonna do? What's your character gonna do? You know, rolling the die. Is that a success, partial success, failure? So really, depending on your comfort level with games, you can really start to play through different types of action that your character might do. Or kind of just stay a little bit in that reflective mode. And again, kind of noticing where that conflict or that tension is showing up in your real life. So where does this friction feel familiar? Where do you feel blocked like this? When do you feel like this? You know, and kind of, again, for me, there's that real existential piece here, even about transformation and change, is kind of letting the old kind of drift off and like settling into the new, or striving towards the newness, the new day, a new self, a new way of being, transformation and change. Right? So it's not about like deliberately like sitting there with your journal and being like, okay, what's my big problem right now? It's about really kind of discovering it through this process. And so, okay, so we've got our character and our role and our world and our conflict, and now it's time for the quest. And if you haven't jumped into any type of action yet, the quest is probably where that's going to happen. And quests are a huge part of role-playing games, right? So this is kind of like the next move. Like now we're going to set all of this stuff into motion, right? And it's not about us, it's about this character. We get to kind of like sit back and have some agency over what this character might try or do, right? Kind of thinking about what this quest looks like. So I'm going to choose there's lots of different ways to choose quests. There are all kinds of quest decks, things like that. I'm going to roll and choose something based off this list from this book. Roll and Play, the Game Master's Fantasy Toolkit. And I got, oh, this isn't even a D20. So, oops. Okay, so I'm going to roll this. And I got a 2. And it says, an evil entity is gathering armor of great power. They already have the breastplate. So this is already could be a very symbolic and archetypal quest. It sounds very shadowy, or maybe like a disowned part of the self. But in any case, that's kind of like the quest. And so now it's kind of like, well, what's going to happen, you know, in this world with this character? Right? And so the first step to kind of think about the quest, if you don't want to jump into action, is like, what is the goal? What needs to be accomplished in this quest, right? And so even thinking about like this character, like I'm not 100% sure right now whether this character wants to support this evil entity or is opposed to it. And it doesn't matter really, because either way it goes, it's going to give me really good information. It's going to be really interesting to kind of see what unfolds. So thinking about who or what could help this character, any allies, tools, magic, skills, or inner strengths. So I like to, I don't know where it is. These are my rolls. Oh yeah, these are my little like magical items cards, and you can use charms for these. So this is where you can also start to lay in other like items or objects, or if you have card decks that have special magical items, you can kind of like pop some of those in. So if I was gonna like pull out something that could really support the character, like a crystal of some kind, like what does that mean? What does that look like? How would they use it? This can also really translate into thinking about skills or inner strengths, like the type of obstacles that they're going to face, what they'll learn along the way. And this is also really starting to become almost like a hero's journey. So there's kind of like that cyclical process that you could go through in the process of like the quest, right? Like what sets this character on their path to, you know, managing or like encountering this evil entity. Or is this character like the evil entity? And then if I have another one, you know, is actually Dewey the one who's going to try to stop this character. So again, there's like a lot of different ways you can play through something like this. And again, when I'm personally doing anything with cards or imagery or anything like this, the idea is it always serves my greatest good. It's never bad news. It's never a negative outcome. It's always serving me in some way. And that's really important, particularly if it's kind of like, to me, this feels a little bit like a negative direction, right? Demon, there's like dark, shadowy figure, an evil entity now. But that's why it can be so important to hold on to that piece of like, okay, well, this is still serving me in some way. And like, what is this? How is this helping me grow? How is this maybe helping me explore more of my shadow or things that are challenging for me, parts of myself that maybe I've disowned or don't really spend much time with in some way. And so, yeah, at this point, I think the game kind of becomes a lot more fluid, right? So we can use dice or cards to create different types of branching options, like, you know, what do you do next, right? It's not so much like sitting there and thinking through it. It's really, the momentum is really gathering to play through it. And then, of course, you know, however long that takes, then we kind of sit back. And then the last step is really to kind of take everything in as a whole. What part of it felt surprisingly accurate? What part was uncomfortable or did you feel some resistance? Like, what did you notice about this character that reflects a part of you that you hadn't named before or hadn't really like thought of? What like strengths, allies, or strategies emerged during the quest? And then, of course, you know, what's one small like action that you could take in your life that resonates like with this quest exploration? And so again, it's this process of self-exploration and discovery that doesn't come from like sitting there and really kind of trying to analyze and there is a lot of intuition, but trying to sit there and like think through a lot of these things. It's kind of really a lot more spontaneous and in the moment, particularly when you add in more game elements to kind of like play through the actual game itself. And so that's one of the many reasons why I really love using games, cards, and imagery for self-exploration. It's not about like forcing insight. It's really kind of creating this structure where meaning and personal relevance and insight just kind of emerges naturally. So thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe for more super cool videos on using all types of cards and elements of games for self-exploration and creative personal growth.